Well, good morning. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2022. This is the Urban Hope Refuge Morning Devotions. And thank God, here we are in another week. Today, we are continuing our reading from the 2022 Daily Bible Reading Guide published by the American Bible Society. For the month of October, we are reading under the theme, God's Renewing Word of Peace and Justice. Today, we're reading from Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 1 through 22 in the New International Version. Sub-theme, the Passover. Verse 1. Observe the month of Aviv and celebrate the Passover of the Lord your God, because in the month of Aviv he brought you out of Egypt by might. Sacrifice as the Passover to the Lord your God an animal from your flock or herd at the place the Lord will choose as a dwelling place for his name. Do not eat it with bread made with yeast, but for 7 days eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, because you left Egypt in haste, so that all the days of your life you may remember the time of your departure from Egypt. Let no yeast be found in your possession in all your land for 7 days. Do not let any of the meat you sacrifice on the evening of the first day remain until morning. You must not sacrifice the Passover in any town the Lord your God gives you, except in the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. There you must sacrifice the Passover in the evening when the sun goes down, on the anniversary of your departure from Egypt. Roast it and eat it at the place the Lord your God will choose. Then, in the morning, return to your tents. For 6 days, eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day, hold an assembly to the Lord your God, and do no work. Sub-theme, the Festival of Weeks. Verse 9. Count off 7 weeks from the time you began to put the sickle to the standing grain. Then celebrate the Festival of Weeks to the Lord your God by giving a free will offering in proportion to the blessing the Lord your God has given you. And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your towns, and the foreigners, the fearless, and the widows living among you. Remember that they were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. Sub-theme, the Festival of Tabernacles, verse 13. Celebrate the Festival of Tabernacles for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your wine press. Be joyful at your festival, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns. For 7 days, celebrate the festival to the Lord your God at the place the Lord will choose. For the Lord your God will bless you in all your harvest and in all the work of your hands, and your joy will be complete. 3 times a year, all your men must appear before the Lord your God at the place he will choose. At the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles, no one should appear before the Lord empty-handed. Each of you must bring a gift in proportion to the way the Lord your God has blessed you. Sub-theme, Judges, verse 18. Appoint judges and officials for each of your tribes in every town the Lord your God is giving you, and they shall judge the people fairly. Do not pervert justice or show partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the innocent. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God is giving you. Sub-theme, worshiping other gods, verse 20. Do not set up any wooden Asherah pole beside the altar you build to the Lord your God, and do not erect a sacred stone for those the Lord your God hates. This concludes our reading for today of Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 1 through 22. You probably are saying to yourself, what does all of that have to do with me today in 2022? Well, Israel has always been the example that God set before us to show us what we should not do and what we should do, excuse me, as we walk this journey with him in this covenant relationship that we have with him, that we would love and obey God. That's our part of the covenant, and that he would bless us, that he would not leave us, and that he would not forsake us. That is our covenant relationship with him. So in the book of Deuteronomy, there are 3 speeches that Moses made before the children of Israel. They are still on their journey to the promised land, and God is giving them everything that they need to know, to do, to honor, rules to follow once they get to the promised land. So, what we read in chapter 16 is the second speech of the three speeches that Moses made to the children of Israel. And in this speech, he's giving them practical rules for how they should live when they get to the promised land. Moses gives instructions about how they should celebrate the Passover. If you will recall, in our readings over the years together of the scriptures, that as God used Moses to free the children of Israel out of bondage and slavery in Egypt, the night before they left, he told them something that they should do. And it was the Passover of the blood. Every Israelite home that had blood on their doorposts, as God had directed them, death would pass over them. So the Israelites were instructed to celebrate the time when God rescued them from Egypt, because they had been slaves in Egypt. They were to celebrate Passover in their homes and in their tents. And here, Moses told them, now God wants you to celebrate in the place that he will choose. And out of all those festivals that we read about, the Passover, the festival of tents, and etc., God said to them, you will celebrate in the place that I choose for you. Saints, it is so important that we know what God requires of us and that we do just that and nothing more. So Moses told them over and over as they went through each of the festivals for 7 days that God wanted them to celebrate. The very important thing about the celebrations that God told them to have is the fact that he wants them to remember. At the end of each description of each celebration, Moses shared with them that God will show you the place that he wants you to choose. He will choose the place, and that you should remember. Now, and he ends each of those festival reviews with the Jews with those words, remember. What does remember actually mean? Because that is so important to us today and is applied to us today in our walk with the Lord. Remember is to have or to be able to bring to one's mind an awareness that of something or someone that one has seen, that one has known, or that one has experienced in the past. Remembering is bringing it to our mind, that we recall it, that we recollect it, that we think of it, that we reminisce about it. It's like a flashback in our mind. And I want to deal with verse 20 in my closing. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord is giving you. Follow justice and justice alone. We are commanded to pursue justice, but we must remember that pursuing justice is not a simple task. There are so many things in this perplexed world in which we live that challenges our ability to be fair. But one thing that is for sure, this is what God requires of us, regardless to who we are working with, what we are working on, what we are committed to. God requires that we pursue justice, that we are fair. Listen, my time is up, but these are God's renewing words of peace and justice. Now, pray your way through the day, walk with the King, and be a blessing.